All right, it's 7:16 on March 1st. 30 days till I leave for the trail. It's crazy to think about. And I'm out walking to go pick up my dynamo wheel from Reed, Passamore. So it's going to be a long day of walking. I think it'll be about 8 miles to get to his house or so. Then I'm walking back, doing a few things around the house, and then walking to Pond City Market, which will be 8 miles round trip. So potentially looking at about 24 miles, I guess, if all my numbers are right. They may not be. I might be over-exaggerating. But in any case, this morning I budgeted to be slightly higher than usual, and I'd say that I have achieved that goal. Usually on Fridays, I'll drive Erica to work, and I have to be conservative about my stonage when I'm doing that, because I have to go into rush hour traffic. So pretty much every time I smoke weed, I'm effectively microdosing. But this morning, Erica's waking up later than usual, so I wanted to start earlier than she would be ready to. So I decided to go ahead and just walk from home rather than driving her to the High Museum and then walking back from there. So I'm walking to and from the High Museum area in order to see Reed. So it's going to be a longer day than usual, and I thought I would permit myself to get slightly higher than usual to recognize that fact. And I'm certainly not going crazy with my highness right now. I feel very much so in control, but also very aware that my cognition has shifted a bit. And my shirt's like fucking riding up on me. Like my back is completely exposed right now. So, anyway, yeah, I thought it would be beneficial to record a clip for however long as I approach the unfinished beltline, just to say a few things before I really get this walk underway. Don't really have much to say per se, but I think it helps just to vocalize things, just to get out of your own head, especially if you know you're going to be alone for a large portion of the day. And it'll definitely be punctuated by being around people. All right, I'm out of the neighborhood now, so I'm going to talk at normal volume. I'll definitely see, actually, a lot of people, more than usual, today. But especially when I'm on the Appalachian Trail, I want to be able to feel comfortable to talk to myself like I usually do. Obviously, I've made many podcasts throughout my life, and so just talking to myself and working out an entire conversation worth of words isn't really something that is difficult. Usually I find myself needing to truncate what I want to say in any given situation, just because I know if I catch a gust, I can be long-winded, to say the least. But this is a good little 15-minute stretch of pretty much solitude here on the unfinished beltline, and why not just talk to myself? This is something I really haven't vocalized to anyone at all, but it's been a persistent thought for months and months. I was feeling like I was having heart palpitations many months ago. Not really for any particular reason, and never from what I came to find via research in any way that might have actually been life-threatening. But it was a feeling that I can pretty much entirely attribute to anxiety, and this type of anxiety is particularly pernicious and stupid, because basically my anxiety was that my heart was going to palpitate, which, if I felt any sensation that might confirm that, I would worry about it. But now for the past couple of weeks, I haven't really felt that feeling, and I think a large part of that anxiety was sort of exacerbated by biking, because because obviously I'm pretty aware of like breathing and heartbeat throughout the course of especially a long ride. And so paying too much attention to my autonomic nervous system, I've been feeling better just because I think I've stopped worrying. There's no like solution to anxiety. There's no missing puzzle piece that you have to find and plug up. Like, the whole thing about anxiety is that you're like, it's like metacognition, like you're literally worrying about worrying. And worrying about worrying, it's like sort of what I would describe the feeling of anxiety as, because it's like a physical reaction to like a series of thoughts. And I don't know, I think, the mind, they say like the neurons that fire together wire together. And so, taking the mind and body as one, because really they are, you can't really separate them. That Alan Watts idea about like, try to have a subject without an environment, like that doesn't exist anywhere. That's not even a real condition that can be achieved. Like, my existence as a sentient being here on Earth requires and necessitates, if you think about it Taoistically, the existence of the world as it is. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the necessary things to live, let alone have the billions of years of evolution from simplicity to complexity that eventually deliver me here to this moment, and everyone else as well. So, all that just to say that, I finally feel like, and I anticipated this change, that I've gotten to a point with my anxiety where I was able to sort of deprogram myself from those firing together neurons, where I would just literally in my head have to shift focus when I started to feel slightly anxious to either a completely different thought or, if possible, no thought at all. I believe that anxiety is also sort of like a bell curve, and so there's like an initial critical mass that initiates like a feedback loop where you start to worry, and then worrying makes you worry, and then your body gets involved. So you have like a physical reaction, I guess nervousness, on edgedness, certainly exacerbated by coffee and being too hungry, as might be the case when I was out biking. You start to get in a weird headspace if you exercise a lot, especially if you exercise a lot in duration. So, the way you feel after a 6-hour bike ride can be a little weird. Just, you've been sort of riding that edge, if you didn't cross it overtly, of exhaustion and like lack of resources and stuff like that. So that puts you in a weird head state, and then you're physically tired from the effort. So mind and body are both following each other right there. And I did that a lot. And I think it did some actual damage to my psyche. It really was starting to create and enforce some patterns that I could tell after just feeling the sharp edge of them were not healthy. And so I knew I needed to change everything basically about how I spent my free time. It's kind of like being a drug addict. Like my biking crossed over from being like in my control and recreational to something that was actually affecting and impacting my day-to-day life, which is sort of the definition of addiction. I was like compelled. Got a runner coming, so might wait just a sec to finish this thought. Morning. I was compelled to bike, and as soon as I stopped back in November, again, March 1st now, so it's been almost 11, 12, 1, 2, it's been 4 months off the bike. Is that real? Is that true? November, December, January, February, wow, it really has. I've been off my bike for 4 months. Haven't missed it at all, especially having walking and running be the thing that I'm doing now. But yeah, compelled to cycle, and it was funny, that first month or so, I had at least 2 dreams where I ended up getting back on my bike even though I didn't want to. And I found out later that there's actually a psychological term for that in terms of like addiction psychology or psychology of addiction. It's called user dreams, where people who have recently taken on sobriety will have dreams of failing their sobriety. And so I definitely had a few dreams of me biking and knowing that it was not the right thing to do, that I was breaking some sort of like, I was letting myself down. That's what it felt like, yeah. Just being disappointed and also being like unable to not give in. It was weird. It was so automatic. Like, you know, I guess I'd done it so many times that basically in my mind it was hard to break the habit of just the mental aspect. You know, biking again, it's mental and physical. And so breaking a habit like that where I'm doing 300 miles a week and shit, which that was insane. I did that for like an entire fucking year. That was crazy. It really wasn't actually an entire year. It was actually 6 months, but man, like, that's fucked up. That was too much biking. I can't believe how long I did that for. I biked, 60%, maybe 65% of every road in Atlanta in that time. To be fair though, I think I started at like 30%, close to it, of having already completed the perimeter. Taking a pit stop real quick. So yeah, changing up my habit, knowing that I had to do it, and basically dealing with the feeling of forcibly and consciously radically shifting yourself mentally and physically from something that is doing you damage. It has made this last 4 months very interesting for me. It's literally life at a different speed. Since, obviously I was obsessed with biking, I had a certain expectation of how far I could go in a certain amount of time, which also means that I knew my average speed most of the time. And walking is so much drastically different, as is running, because you go so much slower, that it took me, I didn't have a means of comparison, so I didn't have really any expectations of how fast I should be able to go if I walk for an hour, and how fast I should be able to go if I run for an hour, which I don't really think of. Well, I have run for an hour. I think I've done it once since starting walking and running. I ran from basically Piedmont Park, a little further away than Piedmont Park itself. So what would that be, slightly more south, I guess, or north? Damn. Yeah, I was running south, so further north than Piedmont Park. I ran back home because I knew if I walked it, it would be 2 hours, and if I ran it, it would be like right at an hour. And didn't really have any huge injuries or consequences from doing that, but this whole 4 month period of walking and running has humbled me, because I didn't really realize how ill-suited my body was for walking and running. Maybe it's akin to Mark Beaumont when he was doing the Around the World in 80 Days. After he was done with that, he said that strangely he would become, he was no longer good at walking, because it had been so long since he had been just off the bike, walking like a normal person. He basically would bike for 240 miles a day, and then walk a short distance to his like sleeper van, and then go to sleep, and then wake up in the morning and walk a very short distance. Anyway, you get the picture. And he was doing massive distance on the bike, and he said he was having difficulty walking, and then that he would get really winded going upstairs, because I guess he had trained himself to be in that like level 1 fitness zone so strongly, where like, he's doing an all-day pace of like 13 to 15 miles an hour, which doesn't really tax your body too much. You can definitely like just kind of chug along. But going upstairs, it's a little bit more anaerobic and taxing on your muscles. You can't really go upstairs at a level 1 fitness level, or at least, you have to go slow as fuck. You have to go miserably slow. So anyway, I had a small version of that where, I feel like my muscles had been specialized in a very specific way, where I was very well suited for biking, but my feet, oh man, everything below my hips really, just so many new, foreign, persistent, and strange pains. Just, man, from like muscle aches to joint feelings of pain, tendons, bone to bone areas, like the hip socket. Even now, as I walk, I have a slight pain in my, femur, my right femur. Just like a deep kind of feeling pain. Feels like it's probably bone or something. Getting close to a construction site, so I need to be aware of cars that might be coming from behind and in front. So anyway, yeah, it's been great, and I think the Appalachian Trail is going to be like, man, I don't even know. That's going to, I feel like I've already changed a lot in the past 4 months, but the upcoming 4 to 6 months, that's a huge departure from all of my previous patterns and habits. So it's going to be fucking crazy. Quitting my job and then just going out and not having nearly as much accountability for how I spend my time. People would look down if you just stopped working and didn't do anything really, like hung around and watched TV, played video games. People would be like, why did you quit your job to do that? And that's not really my style anyway. I feel like the Appalachian Trail is sort of like my final exam of athleticism. Like, it'll be the biggest thing I've ever attempted, and it will be complementary to how I like to spend my time. I like to be outside, I like to listen to podcasts and music, and I like going places through by my own power. So this is going to be a trip and a half. I can't believe it. I'm sure I'm not actually ready for it. Just because I know I can't even imagine. Like, what is day 70 going to feel like? Like, God, that's like over 2 months. And maybe, depending on speed, maybe only being halfway there. 70 days after leaving. That's fucking crazy. I don't even remember what I was doing 70 days ago. So I can't imagine having to continuously walk for 70 days and then knowing you still have to walk that equivalent distance in time. It's fucking nuts, man. It's fucking nuts. So I'm out here about to start listening to a podcast as I get closer to the street. Already just in this brief little fireside chat, I felt a couple of swells of anxiety, just like familiar, like little, like, sparks. Like, they could set a tinder fire if you're not aware of them. Like, the mind is like a tinder cannon or something like that. Like, you have to be able to make sure you don't start a fire in your own head. And so, like, that's one thing. It's like consciousness is like actively pouring over your brain, but there are like these obviously like autonomic systems that operate without any executive input, and you can accidentally push buttons and pull levers that you don't know what they do and how they might affect you, and then at a certain point it's too late. You can't really go back, or at least if you can, it's exceedingly difficult. And again, if you could, you probably wouldn't have gone there to begin with. So, all that just to say, I'm feeling good, feeling happy. I'm excited to listen to Harmontown and to ride the waves of my own thoughts. Not hold on to any of them too much. Be reasonable. So that's all for now. 7:36, 20-minute clip. Good to go.